I have a ton of childhood memories about Twilight Princess, and I think the one I remember most frequently is actually waiting for it and all the hype surrounding it as it got continuously delayed. Reading through the preview articles and issues of Nintendo Power with my friends, we talked a bunch about what we hoped to be in the game and the things that we were most excited for. Strangely though, one of the biggest things in the forefront of my mind was the fishing, one of the features that these articles talked at length about, and that, for some reason, caused me more excitement than mostly anything else in these articles. Because of that, I wanted to revisit that excitement and spend some time taking a close look at fishing in The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. Mercifully, Twilight Princess allows you to start fishing almost immediately at the start of the game. Uli, Colin's mom, talks about how a monkey stole the cradle that she was making for her baby. Using a hawk to retrieve it and bringing it back to her will reward you with a fishing pole. As a neat bit of lore, the fishing pole was actually made by Colin as a gift for you. There's two main ways to fish in Twilight Princess: bobber fishing and lure fishing. Bobber fishing is the one you'll be doing most commonly, so I'm going to start there first. When you tap the button the fishing pole is equipped to, Link will take it out. Tapping it again will cause him to throw out a cast. If you don't land your line in a body of water, Link will automatically retract it. But if you cast it and start wiggling the C-stick around, you can keep your line out, just flailing it around, which is kind of fun. You also need to keep in mind the wind as well. In particularly windy areas, like Kakariko, your line will be affected, throwing off your cast. This is most obviously seen in the opening of the City in the Sky dungeon. Fast-traveling rapids will also mess with your cast, like in the Upper Zora River. In this case, you can still get bites, but your bobber is going to be super jank, making hooking the fish really difficult. The amount of valid fishing locations in the game is actually pretty surprising. Pretty much any liquid in the game can be fished in: the fountain outside of Castletown, the well in the Hidden Village, the water in the boss rooms. I say liquid because you can also fish in places like the freezing water at Snow Peak that instantly kills you, and even the lava in the Goron Mines. I can't promise you'll catch anything in these places, but fishing is all about patience after all. Whenever you cast into a valid body of water, the hook will slowly sink to the bottom, and the bobber will begin to float straight up and down. As fish approach and begin to nibble at your hook, you'll notice your bobber begin to dip below the surface. Whenever a fish is biting, you can set your hook. On the GameCube version, this is done by just pulling straight back on the C-stick. The window in which you can successfully set your hook is defined by if the bobber is currently heading in a downward direction. If you attempt to set your hook with a stationary bobber, or a bobber that is returning up towards the surface, you'll miss your chance. This window is changed based on a few different factors like your bait, and the size and type of the fish, which I'll talk about more granularly in an upcoming segment. If you set your hook correctly, a large fish on message will appear. It's important to note that this is distinctly different from the goat in message you get while working on the ranch. From here, all you need to do is keep holding the C-stick pulled straight back. After a bit of time, you'll catch your fish. A short message will show up giving you a description of the type of fish and its size, as well as if you caught a new largest size. You'll also be rewarded with a heart for catching a fish while bobber fishing. The second type of fishing you can participate in is lure fishing, which is only available at Haina's fishing hole. The earliest you can come to the fishing hole is immediately after defeating the Twilight Parasite Queen. If you go to Castletown after this, you'll even get a letter detailing the grand opening of Iza and Haina's Playground for Grown-Ups, along with the location of the fishing hole, which is this door, located here on the map. In order to lure fish, you need to rent a canoe from Haina for 20 rupees, or you can hire her as a guide for 100 rupees, except for the first time, where she'll come out with you with no extra charge. With Haina on your boat, you can press the Z button to get some hints and tips from her. If she's not there, pressing the Z button brings up Haina's written guide to fishing instead. The real added benefit of spending the additional 80 rupees to hire Haina is that she will yell at you and berate you anytime you miss a fish. As far as I can tell, she doesn't really add any amount of value to your lure fishing, so just spend the 20 rupees and go alone. While on the boat, pressing the B button will equip your fishing pole. Pressing the A button will let you switch which lure you have equipped. By default, you will have 3 lures available to you: the swimmer, popper, and spinner lures. After you cast one of these lures, it will float along the surface, and you can flick the control stick back and forth to make it do a funny little dance, unique to each lure. These motions will attract different types of fish based on which lure you have equipped, supposedly. If you want to reposition your cast, you can press down on the D-pad to quickly reel your line back in as well. When a fish bites the lure, you have to quickly pull back on the control stick and press the B button to hook the fish and then hold them to start reeling in. Fish will attempt to fight back when you're lure fishing and they'll jump out of the water. When this happens, you need to tilt forward and ease the tension on the line or you risk breaking it. When the fish is close enough, you just need to tap the A button to land it. So, the base fishing kit you get for both bobber fishing and lure fishing is fine, and it'll actually get you pretty far in terms of fish you can catch, but there's also numerous things you can do to upgrade your pole. To start with, there's a hook upgrade you can get, which is actually required as part of the story. After obtaining Ashe's sketch depicting the beast holding a red fish, if you show it to Azora, they'll mention that only Prince Rallis has ever been able to catch one of those red fish. Giving it to Prince Rallis will give you the coral earring in return. This is a straight, objective hook upgrade, and will baseline cause your hook to be more attractive to fish by orders of magnitude, as well as allowing you to catch a specific species required for the story, which I'll talk about later. You can also make your hook even more attractive to fish when bobber fishing by using bait. In fact, some species of fish won't even give your hook a passing glance unless you use bait, or if you have the coral earring. There are two main types of bait in the game, worms and bee larvae. Bee larvae is obtained by shooting down beehives, and there's a few beehives in the game. Ordon Village, one right in Hana's fishing hole, one in the Kakariko Graveyard, one in the Hidden Grotto just south of Castletown, and another one in this grotto by the Elden Bridge. The one in Kakariko will actually disappear when you're following the ghost of Rallis' mom. I guess they didn't want you to be attacked by bugs during an emotionally charged moment or something like that. You can shoot down a beehive in a ton of different ways. The slingshot, the claw shot, the bow, and a hawk will all work. If you use the bow, shooting down the hive needs a bit more finesse, requiring you to hit the stem as opposed to the body of the nest. If you hit the body, it just sends the bees into a frenzy, causing them to attack you. Using the boomerang won't work at all. I believe if you manage to hit the stem of the nest with it, it will actually fall, but given the size of both the nest and the boomerang, this is extremely difficult and I've never been able to manage it. Using a bomb arrow does kill the bees instantly as well, but it also blows the hell out of the nest, destroying it completely. Once the beehive falls, it'll break into a bunch of pieces, and you'll need to clear out the bees that cloud their broken nest and attack you if you get too close. But using a bottle on the remains after you clear out the bees will reward you with a scoop of 10 bee larvae. If you get attacked by the bees before shooting the nest down and kill them, there won't be any to worry about when you break the nest. You can also touch the beehive in this state and it'll wiggle around. If you use the hawk though, the bees will instantly scatter and chase down the hawk instead of you. This is only possible in Ordon Village, as there are no hives with hawk grass anywhere else in the game, even though there is a hawk flying around the fishing hole as if hawk grass was supposed to be here, but there's none to be found. Using the claw shot will actually pull the beehive to you, making the bees aggressive and causing them to attack. After clearing them out, you can actually pick up the beehive and play around with it. Throwing it doesn't cause it to break, but doing any damage to it will. Even using the bow or boomerang, which wouldn't break it before, does break it. If you throw it into the water, it'll float. Unfortunately, if you break it, the remains will still appear, but since you can't use your bottle underwater, the larva will be completely wasted. Speaking of water, a good tip for fighting bees, if you jump into the water while the bees are chasing you, they will just scatter. And if their nest is still intact, they'll return to it, but if it's already broken, they just disappear. Alternatively, if you aren't feeling adventurous, you can just buy 10 bee larvae from Sarah's shop in Ordon Village for 10 rupees, as long as you have an empty bottle. As one last thing to mention, beehives will automatically respawn when re-entering the area, except during the opening day of the game. This nest will stay broken for the entire opening sequence, regardless of how many times you reload the game. The other type of bait is worms, which you can find by using Wolflink to dig up these small little mounds around Hyrule, like at this spot behind the first sign in the fishing hole, or here in the pumpkin patches at Ordon. After which, they'll jump out and start to wriggle around, letting you transform back into a human and scoop them up with a bottle. The other way you can find worms is by killing bomb skits running around Hyrule Field. After they die, they'll leave behind a worm. I think the idea here is that they're tapeworms or something, which is absolutely disgusting, and I hate it. A lot. To equip the bait, all you need to do is equip the pole in one slot, the bait in the other, and then press the button the bait is equipped on. As soon as you catch anything, the bait is immediately consumed. You can't catch multiple fish on the same piece of bait, unfortunately. The differences between the two types of bait may not be apparent at first, but it is there. All types of fish tend to prefer worms over bee larvae. They nibble on worms a lot less and go for larger bites, meaning the window in which you can hook them is longer. That being said, worms are much more scarce and only give you 1 use per bottle as opposed to the 10 you get from larvae. Not to mention, these worms are gross and live inside giant tick creatures. Plus, you can eat the bee larva to recover a quarter of heart for each piece of larva in your bottle, which is a little funny. Using bait and the coral earring upgrade in conjunction makes your hook impossible to ignore for fish. and when compared to using just a plain hook or a hook with bait, it's a night and day difference in how quickly they bite. When you're out on the boat lure fishing, in addition to the 3 lures you start with, there's 2 more that you can unlock as well. To unlock the first, you'll need to play Hana's roll goal game that she developed herself. For 5 rupees, all you need to do is get this marble from the green cup to the red cup in under 3 minutes. This is done by tilting the game box, causing the ball to roll along the wooden track. If you fall off, you'll need to pay up and try again. If you're fast enough, you can actually flick the box, causing the marble to jump over small gaps, but this is generally more trouble than it's worth and also kind of feels like cheating. You can also actually cheat. Specifically on level 8, you can hit this ramp and just send the marble flying into the cup right at the beginning, but Hana gets pretty upset about this and forces you to restart and pay up again. At the start, there's 8 levels in total. After completing a level, leaving and re-entering Hana's hut will allow you to take on the next level. For the first 7, you're rewarded with 10 rupees, and after finishing level 8, you'll be given the frog lure. The second unlockable lure that you can get is the sinking lure. This one requires a couple steps. Firstly, you must have caught a Hyrule bass, a Hylian pike, and an Ordon catfish from the fishing hole while lure fishing. Secondly, you must have obtained the coral earring from Prince Rallis. After these 2 steps are completed, waltzing over to either extreme end of the shore in the fishing hole and throwing out a bobber line will give you the chance to catch the sinking lure. Make sure you're pressed up against the wall when you cast. The location can be a bit finicky sometimes. For some reason, this is an illegal lure, whatever that means, so if you hire Hana as a guide and take it out in front of her, she scolds you and confiscates it from you, before throwing it right back where you found it, letting you just fish it up again. When using the sinking lure, if you zoom in after your cast, you'll notice that the lure does as advertised and sinks to the bottom as opposed to floating at the top, and the fish absolutely love this thing. They go crazy for it. The frog lure is way more challenging to use though. If you use your typical timing with the frog lure, the fish will just slip off the hook. You need to instead let the fish grab it and take it underwater for a good amount of time, and then set the hook right before they're about to drop it. Of course, the amount of time between them biting and dropping is variable, meaning it's impossible to get used to the timing, so it's entirely just luck, basically. Both the frog lure and the sinking lure can net you some pretty sizable fish, and either one is required to catch the crowning achievement of the fishing community in this game, which is the topic of the next section. Alright, so now that we know the basics of fishing, and we have our equipment all sorted out, we can finally chat about the kinds of fish you're actually going to be able to find out in the world. So after you catch your first fish, you'll be given the fishing journal, located in the pause menu. This will track every type of fish you can catch bobber fishing, as well as your largest size, and the amount of each that you've caught. Fish that you catch while lure fishing won't be displayed or tracked in the fishing journal, but instead can be found swimming around in this tank in the fishing hole. Unfortunately, that does mean you can't ever see your recorded largest size for any lure fishing fish, which kinda sucks. Looking into a body of water, if you can catch fish there, you'll actually be able to physically see them, including model differences for every kind of species, and they'll actually look bigger or smaller based on their length. Not that you could use your fishing pole as Wolf Link anyway, but fish don't spawn at all in the Twilight realm, even in pools where they are there in the normal world, which is kinda interesting. In total, there's 9 types of fish that you can catch. The greengill, Ordon catfish, Hyrule bass, Hylian pike, reek fish, 2 versions of the Hylian loach, a baby and an adult, and 2 evil fish that I'll get to in a bit. Starting with the greengill, this is the most common fish in the game and can be caught only by bobber fishing. This will also be the first fish you catch, as you're required to catch 2 of them at the start of the game, prompting Sarah's cat to commit grand larceny, which will return him home, allowing you to progress the story. They will eat and bite on anything, even a bare hook, but like all fish, you can increase their hook window by using bait. They can be found in most waterways around Hyrule, but also some bizarre areas, like this room in Goron Mines right before the mini-boss room, or in this room in the Forest Temple, and countless other places in the game. Greengills are also actually a somewhat unique case. Ordon Village during the opening of the game has a separate instance of greengills. These tiny 9-inch ones next to the water wheel are ravenous for anything and will happily gobble up even a bare hook. Whenever you return to Ordon Village later in the game, this spot will be replaced with the usual bigger greengills and even an Ordon catfish, which will behave like normal when it comes to the bait that's used to catch them. I should mention here that with the exception of greengills, all upcoming fish types I'm going to talk about won't even give your hook a passing glance if you aren't using bait, unless you have the coral earring upgrade. Next up is the Ordon catfish, which can be found at the base of the rock in Ordon Village where the monkey is holding Uli's cradle, the small creek right outside of Colin's house, and also in this small side pond in the Fair and Spirit Spring. And they're in Hana's fishing hole as well, specifically beneath the stone arch in the center. Hyrule bass can be found in a lot of different bodies of water, usually alongside greengill in places like the Elden Spring in Kakariko and the Goron Mines. They're also exceptionally common in Hina's fishing hole and don't have a lure preference at all. Helian pike are also found in Hina's fishing hole and prefer the spinner lure or the frog lure when lure fishing. When bobber fishing, they can be found in various riverways around Hyrule, but also here in the Hidden Grotto with the beehive to the south of Castletown I talked about before. This grotto is actually chock full of greengill and Helian pike, and they're super easy to catch here, making it a good place to grind for size records if you're into that. Next up is the reekfish, which, like the greengill, is also a story-required fish related to the coral earring quest I mentioned earlier. When you're going after the yetis that live in the mountains, you discover that they're catching these reekfish, and because they're mega stinky, you can use one to get the scent for Wolflink to allow you to track them. According to Prince Ralis, the reekfish eat the same kind of coral that this earring is made out of, so you can only catch the reekfish when you have it. After which, you can catch them in their only known location, swimming around this rock formation in Zora's Domain. The baby Helian loach are found in this pool of the Sacred Grove, the Lanayru Spirit Spring, the Graveyard, and bizarrely, some rooms in the Lakebed Temple, like this one in the room you get the compass, or the Bosky room. Speaking of the Lakebed Temple, earlier I mentioned two evil fish. These are the bombfish and the skullfish. For some reason, whenever you catch one of these fish, a message appears saying they're somehow forbidden, in accordance with divine fish law or something, and because of this, catching either of them will sadly not give them a record in the fishing journal. Technically, these are both enemies, and both will attempt to attack you if you're in the water with them, which means you can also fight them like any other enemy with the claw shot or your sword if you're in the water. Skullfish are found in the Lakebed Temple as well as the grotto near the Elden Bridge. They're completely ravenous and will swarm your hook, making it actually pretty difficult to catch them with so many constantly biting at it. The bombfish are much more scarce. One can be found in the Lakebed Temple outside the Bosky room, and more can also be found in the Elden Bridge grotto alongside the skullfish. Morpheal will also shoot them out during phase 1 of his boss fight, but because you can't equip your fishing rod in his boss room, you can't actually catch them here. When you do catch one of these guys, it will add a water bomb to your bomb bag, which is pretty neat. Weirdly though, you can't actually catch the one in Lakebed Temple. I believe it has something to do with the depth of the water in this room, meaning your only opportunity to catch them is the Hidden Grotto. And even then, for some reason, they're obscenely hard to catch, even with the earring and the bait. Finally, we have the adult Helian loach. This is considered to be the crowning achievement of fishing in this game. You can only find one at a time in Hina's fishing hole, and only when the fishing hole is in summer. I'll get more into the seasons in the next section. During the summer, this corner of the fishing hole will be populated with lily pads and some frogs hopping around. This is where the adult Helian loach likes to hide out. It can only be caught with the sinking lure or the frog lure, and it is incredibly annoying to catch, especially if you're using the frog lure. Hooking it is one thing, but then it also likes to sit under your boat, which makes landing it when you do hook it very difficult. And if you take too long, sorry, it gets off your hook. Sometimes it won't even give you the opportunity to land it at all. Fun. If this scenario happens, it will never bite your lure again for that outing, forcing you to quit and spend additional money on another boat rental. Also, since this is the only fish in this area, you'll be spending a good amount of time just looking for it amongst the lily pads. During the night and day, the water is pretty clear, making this fairly easy, but during dusk, the water becomes basically impossible to see through. When you do finally manage to catch the adult Helian loach, showing it to Hina will cause her to be beside herself in excitement, and according to her, she will start calling you Fishmaster from that point on. Sadly, because you can only catch the adult Helian loach via lure fishing, your biggest size won't update in the fishing journal, and it will only have the baby Helian loach size. As one final reward, you'll get a picture of Link holding the Helian loach, forever hung up on the wall of the fishing hole. And you better have used the frog lure. How could you even live with yourself being called Fishmaster, having this smug picture of you hung up, if you use something as evil and diabolical as the sinking lure? Because there's so many quirks and features of the fishing hole itself, I thought that it warranted having its own section. I mentioned earlier that the fishing hole has different seasons, and the first time you enter, it'll be spring. But if you leave the hole and re-enter, the seasons will progress to summer, fall, winter, and back to spring on a loop. As stated, the Helian loach can only be found in the summertime. The lily pads where it hides are only here in the summer and the fall. During spring and winter, they're not around at all. The frogs, as well, are only hopping around in the summer, which I think is the game's way of hinting to you where to use the frog lure and at what time. In addition to this, the season also affects how much effort it takes to get a fish to bite your lure. In summer, the fish take a lot of coaxing. In spring and fall, it's less so, and in the winter, they are very aggressive and will attack your lure without much input. Interestingly, this is similar to how fishing works in real life. Although fish are not very active in the winter and much more active in the summer, The scarcity level of food causes them to react to bait and lures in a similar fashion to how this game does it. The weather also affects fishing, in the same way that seasons do. Rain is a predominant weather effect that can happen in Hyrule, and while it's raining in the fishing hole, fish become much more aggressive, attacking your lure without much need to draw them in with the lure's motion at all. This only applies to lure fishing though. Neither the season or the weather has any bearing on how the fish respond to bobber fishing, unfortunately. It will also never rain in the winter, meaning you can't double up on the fish aggression. In Haina's hut itself, there's actually a fair amount in here to explore. Using the first-person camera and looking around at things will cause Haina to talk about them. You can get her comments on her canoe, her pet bird Purdy, which you can stand next to and sometimes catch the speak prompt to get it to greet you in various ways. The fish tank, the weather, which also changes her dialogue based on if it's raining or not, her lures, and all the pictures lining the walls, where it's actually revealed that Haina is the youngest of 3 siblings, her older brother Koro, the guy who gives you the lantern, and her older sister Iza, the boat rental girl, are pictured here. Also, there's a photo of the fisherman from Ocarina of Time. The neat little detail as well is every time you look at this picture, Haina will start scratching her back just like the fisherman from Ocarina did constantly. Earlier, when I was talking about roll goal, you might have noticed that the levels are labeled 1-1, 1-2, and so on. Well, the reason for this is there are actually 64 levels in roll goal. After you completed the first 8 levels, Haina will let you take on hard mode, unlocking the next set, 2-1, 2-2, 2-3, and so on. Each time you unlock a new set of levels, Haina will mirror the track in the box and also reduce the time limit by 10 seconds. This pattern repeats until the Ace set, which only gives you 30 seconds to complete each level. After completing level 8-8, she'll actually give you a pretty significant reward of maxing out your wallet with rupees. If you've done the bug side quest for Agatha and have the Giant's wallet, this means you'll be getting a whopping 1,000 rupees. This is only for the first time you complete level 8-8 though. After that, you just get the normal 10 rupee reward. Obviously, this isn't as efficient as just talking to Giovanni's cat over and over for silver rupees, but that does also require you to collect all 60 pole souls, so you'll need to be the judge on which you think is easier. Coming back outside, there are a couple signs detailing the 2 big rules of the fishing hole, which are kind of a joke because you can and do break both of them constantly and no one really cares. Well, except for the sinking lure thing, I guess, but she still just throws it back into the water for you, so who really cares? The no littering one is especially weird because you can catch 4 different pieces of trash around the world of Hyrule, and Haina's fishing hole is no exception. Those being a boot, an empty can, a wagon wheel, and a stick. You can also fish up a bag of rupees, and if you cast the bobber line next to the no littering sign, you will catch a bottle, which is obviously very useful for us, but to most people I'd think they'd just consider it trash. The fishing hole has 2 resident ducks that are present in every season. Talking with them as Wolf Link will even hint at the bottle being over there, while also complaining about the state of the litter. Something that the ducks don't mention, but is probably considered trash by most residents of Hyrule, is this piece of heart on top of the stone arch in the middle of the fishing hole. If you cast towards it, you can hook it and reel it in. The upcoming information is all stuff that I don't think fit in really any of the other sections, but are still worth talking about in my opinion. Near the waterfalls, and in the small side pool of the fishing hole, you can see these weird white and green fish, but you can't ever actually catch them. The boss room in the forest temple has some water you can fish in, and you can see these weird fish swimming around in the water here too. You can come back here after you get the claw shot in the Zora armor and take a closer look at them, and they'll actually react to you and swim away. If you push them towards the edge of the water within range of your hook, they won't ever bite it though. What are these strange, bizarre, mysterious 10th fish, and will we ever know the answer? This has nothing to do with anything fishing related, but I got unreasonably excited when I heard this, and I felt like I needed to share it. So this is Plum. He's the sassy bird that runs the fruit popping minigame, but this guy has a super unique voice. If you slam into a wall and fail his minigame, he calls you lame, and also makes this noise, which is the same exact soundbite that the Kiwi enemies make in Jumping Flash, an enemy that is very near and dear to my heart. And finally, the last thing that I wanted to talk about is one of my favorite little tricks in this game. During the final phase of the Ganondorf fight, the one-on-one sword duel, you can actually use the fishing pole. Casting it towards him will cause him to be distracted by the bobber, letting you get some cheap shots in. I do want it on record as well that I tried to cast a line at every single enemy in the entire game, and none of them cared about it at all. Only the self-proclaimed Dark Lord was tricked by my secret hook and bobber technique. So that's everything you could ever want to know about fishing in Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. It's kind of interesting that I still get excited about fishing in video games, not just this one, but all video games, the same way that Kid Me did. even all these years later. I hope that you take this information and do some fishing in this game yourself, because it's honestly pretty fun and relaxing. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you later.